sacrifice. Lord, take control, take control.
Have you ever found yourself in a state of confusion, where perhaps you ask of others or maybe even of God questions such as, why is all this happening to me? What have I done to deserve this? You know, especially in light of our health, sometimes we ask questions such as those. And more times than not, if you will, we've done absolutely nothing to deserve our situation, but it doesn't change the fact that we're in it. And it certainly doesn't change the fact that we do not comprehend or fully understand, or if you will, we're confused by that situation. I had the opportunity on yesterday, as I mentioned on yesterday's program, to go over and visit several people in UAB and also children's hospitals. And one of the young ladies that I visited with, I suppose about 13 or 14 years old, she's from our community. She has been recently, as of yesterday at least, diagnosed with diabetes. As a matter of fact, she had no signs. There were no history in her family by her mother, father, grandparents that they know of. There was no history of diabetes. This young lady had simply become ill. They didn't know what the problem was. And when they took her to the doctor, she was sent to the hospital and finally rushed over to Children's Hospital because her blood sugar levels were about 900. Now, you know as well as I do that a 900 blood sugar level is rather dangerous, if not could be deadly, to be honest. And so her family was there in an utter state of confusion. They had no idea why this came about. The doctors cannot really explain it, although they've seen it happen several times, so they know it's possible. But there's no real explanation as to why she so suddenly had these symptoms and suddenly had these problems. And so they're rather confused. They sit there and question themselves. They question maybe they should have seen something. Maybe they should have noticed something earlier. And that may have been the case, but most likely not. Most likely this is just a sudden onset case of type 1 diabetes. But in considering that, I want you to understand every situation in life will not be comprehended. Every situation, every trial in life will not be fully understood. But if that's the case, then we're not alone. As a matter of fact, the Apostle Paul said this in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. Begin reading with me, if you will, in verse 8. Here the Bible says, "For we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed." Now, I don't know if you realized it, but the word perplexed there in the English language, King James translation, comes from the Greek word that literally means confusion. It literally says of Paul in his situation, in light of his troubles and trials, I don't understand. But the beauty of this is that Paul said, I'm perplexed, but I'm not in despair. Now, why is that? Because the Apostle Paul, like you and I should, he realized that he was not going to understand his situation. He was not going to comprehend. He was going to be confused sometimes. And of course, he's speaking in light of physical persecution that he's enduring. But at the same time, although he may not understand it, God does. And so that leads us to a level of lacking despair. That leads us to a level of hope in understanding and knowing that God's plan, although we may not understand it, is much different than ours. That God's outlook on things is much different, from a different perspective, through a different set of eyes, if you will, than ours perhaps ever will be. So I want to encourage you today. When you find yourself in the midst of trying times, difficult situations, even though you're confused by that, even though you do not understand it, and you maybe even cannot comprehend why this has fallen upon you, understand that in the will of God, things are going to be all right. If you'll look to God faithfully, if you'll trust Him, if you'll rely on Him, lean on Him, and you'll obey Him, things will work out ultimately for you spiritually regardless of any other situation in life. It's my prayer today that as we go through our days, that we would always realize that the things that we don't understand in this world, God does. God has the ideas, God has the plans, and God has set them in order in your life. Thank God for every situation that you're in, whether it be difficult or whether it be easy. And thank God for allowing you to even live a life such as you have. This has been your Daily Dose, and it's my prayer that you'll be encouraged.
Lord, I am serious about living this new life with you. My heart, my mind, my body, and my soul are yours. Take control, Lord. I surrender everything to you. The words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart, all that I own, all that I am. Fill me with compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, and discipline. Make me a living sacrifice, Lord. Take control.